Hey, what's up? Today we have a Wizard 21-inch cut lawnmower, bagged, not self-propelled, fairly decent condition for its age. These motors are fairly old, and with the exception of some paint and some minor rust, which will be cleaned off, it's not a real bad mower. Has a 4 horsepower Briggs on it. These are pretty much bulletproof. The only problem with these motors is that they don't really come very large, so you are pretty much stuck with 4 horsepower, maybe a little more than that. Once you get much higher, it's a different system. But like I said, these are bulletproof, and unless you're mowing insanely tall grass, this is all you need. This will last you a very long time. Having said that, it doesn't run, so maybe it's not going to last for a long time. We don't know yet. All I know is that I cleaned it because it was absolutely horrible. Check the oil, it has oil, and that's about it. So I think we're going to spray a little bit of help down the throat to look at the gas tank, make sure we're not inhaling a whole bunch of water before we do that. That's about it. It's pretty much a prerequisite that everyone that owns this has to put these caps on so insanely tight that it's next to impossible to take off without a pair of pliers. Or maybe I just have little girl hands, I don't know. Been told I don't, though. Well, there's some nasty in there. But it doesn't appear to be water. It's a little hard to see, but usually you see like separation in the bottom of the tank or something. I don't really see that. So while it's not good fuel, at least it's fuel, which is usually a bonus. And as you can tell, this is already loose for me. Overly tightened fuel cap and underly tightened air filter. So far we're on a roll. Air filter doesn't look half bad. I don't think this is used a whole lot. I'm going to blow that out with some compressed air real quick. Let's see if we get any primer bulb response. Oh, we do. Kind of. Oh, yeah. Well, let's see what happens with that. And the reason why I blew it out is because I did see a little bit of water. I didn't see junk. If I saw junk, you shouldn't blow it out. You should just take the carb off. So I should probably make that known. Let's give it a pull. Now this cable definitely could use a little attention, but it still works. It's pretty decent compression. Well, it very well could just be water in the carb, and that's what we were priming. Don't know. This is just straight fuel. I'm just gonna pour a little bit in there. It's a tad on the old end, but it should be more than adequate. I don't think we have a compression issue. Let's see if we have a fouled plug in there. So far the plug is looking pretty nasty. And yes, it was connected. I just disconnected it beforehand. I mean, it is wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull maybe 6, 7, 8 times real hard, real fast, and try to evacuate that cylinder. then we're going to try this again. And then I might even, in fact I will, put in a brand new plug, make sure I have one. I do. It's not the greatest, but it's an auto light. It will work for the time being. I think it's the equivalent to like a RJ19, but whatever the smaller version of it is. You might as well follow me in this rodeo. I really don't like the pull cord down here. And we're not going to use fuel. We're going to, excuse me, put a little bit of carb spray. Very little. We don't want to have the exact same problem we just had. We don't need to have it run for like 10 seconds either. We just need to hear that we have a decent non-knocking. Smoking is going to be a little hard to tell, but at the very least, if we spend our time fixing a carb and we keep the carb later, you know, there could be worse outcomes. Oh, I have something. Was not expecting that one. I think. Let's try this again. See if it pops one more time. We're going to do it through the carb though. Wants to. So, two things are going through my head right now. One, the valve, most likely the intake, is having a little bit of a hard time sealing, and constant pulling will hopefully break the crud that's causing it to get hung up out. And then we'll move on. Or two, valves are out of adjustment. Most likely the intake, which is odd. Usually it's the exhaust. It's not uncommon, but just odd. Try this again, but with gas. But very well could be spark. We have not excluded anything. That was so close. I'm gonna do this like 2 or 3 more times, and if we don't have it going, we have more work to do than just the carb. Something that also can be a problem is the timing. Sure, flywheel key could be sheared. So something we can do to kind of help guide our focus. That plug's fine. Is take a compression reading. See what we get. I don't really like these rubber hose versions. I like the steel braided ones. If it even needs a hose, I prefer to have it on the actual gauge, but those are not very useful for pretty much any other motor besides these. If you have a choke and you do this, which obviously we don't have one on this, but if you do, make sure it's off full throttle, which it is right now. That's how they always are. It's also something to note is that we are low. We're not even at 60. We are at 50, maybe. So we are definitely low. Now, judging by that pop I saw from the intake or the carb, our valves are out of adjustment. So we need to do a valve job. So I'm going to take off the carb. I'm sure it's going to be rebuilt, but I have other videos on how rebuilding it, so I'm not going to show that. And then once the carb is off, and take off this cover, 2 1/4-inch screws, and then we're going to take off the shroud. We'll be able to take the head off and everything, but I'm going to go ahead and take the carburetor off, the cover, and we'll meet you there. So to check this, you don't have to take off the carb. The plate's right there. You might have to take off the muffler. There we go. Sometimes it can be real bad. But you don't have to. If it's stuck on there, you know, try to work around it. But 1/2 inch, we're going to take off the head. I had to take off the 3 anyway to take off the little bracket for the carb, which yet again you don't have to take off. You could just leave it. But removing the carb isn't that hard, and from what I saw in there, oops, I'm missing one. We're gonna have to clean it if this is right. If it's a bad motor, well, we still might have to clean it because I'm sure the other motor I have will need a clean carb. Funny how that works, huh? Either way you look at it, there's going to be a carb cleaning. I mean, the head gasket didn't come off great, but it still came off. I'm going to put a clip on the grill so we don't have to fight the brake when we spin the motor around. So that was the exhausts. This is the intake. So now the exhaust is open. Let's see if we can get you a better shot of that. With the exhaust open, we shouldn't really be able to twist this at all. We're not. Okay. The intake is the top one. Let's try the exhaust. No, also not really seeing a whole lot. Let's feel the bore. really feel a whole lot. I mean, it's not in perfect condition. Let's see if there's any slop in the piston, or how much slop I should say. Piston doesn't have any excessive or real noticeable amount. Well, either way, I'm gonna want to take out those. I want to take out the valves, lap them in, and put a new head gasket on it, and see if that's the problem. Because right now, let's take a clean towel and just kind of wipe off. There's a little bit of something in there. I mean, there's nothing that's ringing any alarm bells in my mind right now. I'm going to take a closer look at that bore, but I'm thinking we're going to do a valve. So normally you would just do this in the beginning, but I didn't, because I figured we'll be having to do this anyway. So we're going to continue. I don't know how well you're going to see. Let's get you a little closer, why don't we? So currently the bottom, the exhaust, is open. The intake, which is the one that we were kind of questioning, is up top, and there should absolutely be nothing there. I looked to see if I have a head gasket. I don't, so it's getting kind of late in the day, so I might just call it a quit. Can't really see very well, but let's see if I can lurch my way in there. Excuse me. There's like no play. This is 6/1000. Let's try. There was literally almost nothing, so we're gonna try 25 thousandths and see if anything fits in there. 25 barely squeegees in there, and I can't even push it in there because the metal's too thin and just not gonna let me do it. So our intake is definitely needing to be replaced. It's getting late though. I'm gonna check the exhaust. I'm gonna look up the exact specs for this engine, and then we'll continue on. But basically what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to grind the end of the stem. And well, we'll go over that next, why don't we? A few days later, I have some head gaskets. So, what do you say that we take out the valves, see what we have? So this is a valve spring removal tool. It's number 19063. I think it's made by Briggs and Stratton, if I remember correctly. It's something that is a little expensive if you don't ever plan on using very often, so you probably won't have it. But if you do, it's a very valuable tool, especially for the removal. Installing them also is pretty good, but removal, it's pretty nice to have. I need to tighten up the other end real quick. What I mean by that is this little piece is not tight enough. I need to tighten it up. There we go. I'll show you why this is useful. So we have our valve out. See how there's like this little slot that fits in there and it goes down the middle. You can fiddle around with a screwdriver. It's probably the easiest way, but without this tool, I should say, pair of pliers and, you know, whatever you need to do to take it out. But if you have one of these tools, it's a lot easier. So I'm gonna do that again, and then we will get to work on it. Before I do that, because the top does have a lot of grime on it, or top of the valves and everything, I'm going to take a wire wheel, a brass wire wheel, that way it's softer than the surrounding area, and try to take off the rest of this nonsense, and we will get it nice and cleaned up. I was mentioning before that these are kind of a pain if you don't have a tool. They're a pain even if you have a tool, but if you don't, a real easy way, you see how the little insertion point is on the opposite end, this little groove. If you can get this groove facing you, like so, and you take a screwdriver, and you push down on it and then pull back, it will come right out. In fact, it's probably borderline easier than using a tool. And what you'll do is you'll have the spring in there, but with the valve able to be taken out. And then from there, you just reach in and take out spring keeper, everything. So, you know, you don't need it, but I will say, putting the spring or the spring back in without, that's gonna be a little rough. Something to note as well, some motors, the spring tension is going to be a little bit different, and the spring itself might be different, so you're going to want to keep them separated and make sure you use the right one for the right valve. Here comes the real scary part. So now we have to grind the valves. Now, as it stands, you're not really going to get 100% perfect measurement right now. So what you need to do is look up your measurement and take the valve, press on it, because there's going to be a spring on there, and hold it and figure out how much more you need to take off. How do you take it off? Great question. Any machinist out there is going to hate me for saying this, but if you have like a disc grinder, with a normal stone, preferably fine stone, you can go on the side, because that is a flat piece. You're never really ever supposed to do that, but I think this might call for an exception. If you use the actual circular end like you're supposed to, you probably won't really notice a difference, but it's just easier if you do it on a flat surface. You could take a flap disc on a little 4-inch grinder. That would also work. However you need to do it, but whatever you need to do is you need to make sure to test it frequently. Press on it, take out your feeler gauge, test it, and then what I like to do is I like to go about 1/1000ths over. The reason why I do that is simple. After we finish seating the valves, or finishing the valve seat, it's usually a little bit lower, and with the spring tension on there, usually the clearance is tightened up a little bit. So I like to have a little bit of 1/1000ths, or let's say for instance it says between 6 and 8/1000ths. I would go to the full 8 at the very least. I'm not saying go overboard, because it's a whole lot easier to remove metal than it is to add it. So do it very slowly, cautiously, measure often. That's really boring to watch, so I'm just going to go ahead and do both of them, and we'll be right back. About 4 or 5 checkings later, I now have the right clearance. Now, let's say you don't have like a bench grinder, but you do have, you know, standard old grinder. I call this a spaghetti wheel. I think it's called a surface preparation disc. It's really good for removing paint and rust. It removes next to no metal at a time, and that's like perfect for me, because you're not removing a whole lot. I think I had to remove maybe 5/1000ths off the intake and 2 or 3 on the exhaust. So literally like a kiss on a flap disc is probably going to be just enough, but that one is going to afford you a little bit more oops time. Moving along, cleaned up the seat. This is valve grinding compound. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it along the side. You don't need a whole lot of it. I'm just going to spread it around just so it's semi-evenly dispersed on the little ramp on the end of the valve, because that part seats it with the seat. So we push that there, and then we grab our tool. So you could pick up one of these on Amazon. Just type in like valve grinding tool, or eBay, or whatever your choice is. And this is what you do. Every now and then the suction cup fell off this one. Lift it up, move it back and forth. On a flathead, on an overhead, you could cheat and just put your drill on the other end of the valve, but this one, there's not a whole lot of cheating that you can do. This is not a legacy tool, if you can tell. You're not going to be passing this to your grandchildren. Let's try the other side. Get it wet. Oh, got some type of suction there. I need to get a new one. That's what this is teaching me right now. Okay, well, I'm going to work on getting this nice and taken care of, because there we go. Now it works. And you're going to do this for a couple minutes. Basically, you're just kind of resurfacing both the valve and the seat on the block so they both match each other and they're both clean and good to be used. A flat valve. This is not flat, this is concaved. It's a lot easier to use this on. Some people use this tool like they're trying to start a fire. They put their hands in there. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll take a little extra time. To be honest, we're probably pretty good right there. Just has to be clean and even. That's the key. So we're going to clean this up. If they're really, really, really bad, you will either have to replace them, or some machine shops can resurface them. I think it's a 30-degree cut they have. Maybe 45, I don't remember. But basically, what we are looking for, see that little gray area? And that's kind of fat, but it's not broken anywhere. You want to make sure it's even, no black, no nothing. It's all evenly colored. Same thing for right here. You want to make sure you remove all of the valve grinding compound. If you don't, it's going to run for a very short amount of time. You're probably going to burn a valve. What burning a valve is So, if there's like a small little area where the valve isn't seating properly, hot compressed gases can rush out there. The hot in that area will get super hot and it will kind of melt it. So you don't want to do that. So after you're done cleaning, you put it back and then you check your clearance one more time. As a reference, I had originally 6 because it was 5 to 7. I knew I wanted closer to 5, so I did 6, and the other one was 6 to 8, so I did 8. So this is 5 now, and it works just great. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the exhaust and meet you back here. Just like I suspected, we lost about 1/1000th of an inch on both. So I'm going to clean up these springs. Brought you back to kind of look at this real quick because of this reason. One, I don't think I 100% explained why I was checking for slop in the piston. I'm checking for slop because if it was, then I would know we don't have a valve problem. We have a piston ring problem. That means is if you push back and forth, and it's going to move a little bit, especially if you push really hard. But if you're not even pushing that hard and you see it moving pretty decently, you know the rings are shot or the bore, something along that avenue of wear, and you pretty much have a whole lot more work ahead of you than just doing a simple valve repair. So, excuse the ears 1 second. Made sure everything is clean, is booted off, looks good. So what I like to do is I like to put the entryway towards the end and then push the whole thing on so it fully seats where it should, and at that point I loosen it, I could pull everything out and we're golden. Let me show you. This is the intake, so we push it right about there just so it's out of our way, and we put it in. Now we're able to push it up. There's literally no pressure you have to push on there, it just slides right into place. And now we pull our utensil out. Maybe a little too wide, there we go. And now we look pretty good. That didn't go back because there's no spring obviously, but it's not really a definite way of doing that, but basically what you do want to do is you just want to make sure that it's in there because it's going to move during normal operation, so it's not like there's only one way. That's just the easiest way for me, and I like easy. Just makes things easier. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do the other one and bring you back. And at this point in time, it would be a good idea to double check your valve clearances. That's good. Just because it didn't have a spring on it before, so we don't know if it was going to be changing a whole lot. We're pressing on the front of the valve, but the spring is going to put the right amount of tension on there. Oh, that's 6. Huh. Okay. And we need to make sure that our piston's at top dead center when we do that, because we were moving it a little bit. See, like this. I think we have to grind a little more off. This is 5/1000ths, and it's not fitting in there anymore. So we have a little bit more. I'm going to do that one more time, and that should be it. Here's that screwdriver trick I was talking about. You move this so it's facing you. Oops. And then oh, shit. Make me a liar, why don't you? Well, I'm going to use my tool because I have it, but just know that would be a good idea for you to do it. Back to spec. This gasket looks pretty decent. It didn't rip or break or anything. We're going to put that right back where we found it. I'm not going to show the head installation, but here's a weird little story about that. I went to go buy a head gasket for it. I found the right one pretty easily. In fact, if you need one, this number is part number 698717. Briggs and Stratton will sell one for $7.99, or they'll sell 5 for $9.89. So I bought 5. This particular motor, according to what I've found, needs a torque spec, or it needs to have the head torqued to 140 inch-pounds. So I'm just going to do that. Put everything back together, and clean the carb, and call good. I'm not going to show the carb cleaning because, to be honest, I'm going to make a separate video on that specific carb by itself. So if you want to know how to clean that, follow me on cleaning the carb, or watch that video. It should be coming out either now or right before now. So I'll bring you back. Time to find out. Okay. That helps. Usually. A little adjustment. Checking out. Just bent the spring forward a little bit. Okay, well, there it goes. So, if you have no compression, but your engine's pretty good, no swap, no nothing, this could be a good solution. Well, if you have any questions, leave a comment, subscribe, follow me, and I'll catch you later.